doing right now? We're just chilling, waiting to see what she does naturally. She's on free time. There's neighbors over here with dogs that bark every now and then inside the house, and I think she's starting to see this as her own property. You know, the way that she walked up to the edge of the property and kind of, it tells me that she wants that role to protect and alert about the property, which is half the reason why I would get a pit bull like this anyway, so that it could be my companion. But she has to know the rules like Riggins does. Riggins does have responsibilities. If somebody tries to break into my house, he is to let that person know and to me know that they're not wanted. But he's not to bark at people knocking at the door or whatever. He needs to have good judgment. You know, he can't just be barking at everything that passes. So she's gonna learn that sweet spot of being that awesome companion who's following you and listening to you and not trying to do her own thing, but also can recognize when a situation is really the real deal, which is never. It never happens, rarely ever. And it's appropriate for her to be that way, to express herself that way. Somebody coming through a window at 3 a.m. would be the appropriate time for her to start barking and letting you know. But the UPS guy that comes every other day to drop off a package is not. And that guy is not a threat, so her alerting is wrong anyway. They need to be more aware of the comings and goings of the average day, right? So how often does Riggins bark, Jules?
Hardly ever.
And when he does, it's because when Riggins actually does grumble, I look and see the situation and I say, is that appropriate for him to be grumbling, right? So I'll look and I'll see somebody just kind of hanging out up here, and it looks weird. They're hanging out up here because they're looking at the property, or they're looking, at the houses. So they look kind of weird. They're right at the top of our property, and he does this from the living room. And I look out the window, I give him a pat on the head, and I say enough. Because I think that was appropriate. Good, I want you to know when something weird looks like that. But he didn't do this. Now, how did I get him to do that? The way that you get a dog where you get a chance to actually tell them what you like, with them starting real low and kind of easing into it instead of just going off, is you don't let them do it anymore. You say, no more barking. No, this isn't for you. None of this, none of this. You take that control for the next 3 months till the dog doesn't think it's even an option to bark at anything. Eventually, a real life situation will come up where it's actually appropriate for her to feel that way. Maybe something does happen where it even spooks you, and she reacts mildly, like with a little bit of a growl, and then you shoo her away and she listens and all that. She doesn't get punished for that one, because that's the appropriate one. I mean, that's an option. Or she does get punished for it, and you say never, ever, ever. But that's how you develop a dog who has good judgment, who doesn't just assume they're gonna bark at everything, Barking at the person that jogs by every day. That person is not a threat. This dog over here is not a threat. I bet you she has never even seen an actual threat in her life, you know what I mean? So all she's doing is saying, I'm alerting to the pack. And all we're doing is saying, we don't want you alerting to the pack, and if you do, we're gonna punish you. And then what happens is she starts alerting, but the byproduct of that is she says, it actually hits home that that's not my position in the pack, which means I don't lead. And with her believing that she's following, that's why the barking's going to go away. That's why the pushiness is going to go away, because she believes that we are going to deal with whatever's coming up. And all the subordinate pack members get punished for trying to deal with the situation unless they were told to, right? Unless I said, hey, what's that? Go get it. Don't even bother with it. Especially if I say out and tell you to leave the situation, I want you to leave physically and mentally. Okay, so these are the kind of things. So see how if I was raising this dog, I would leave her be right here. So this is good, she's checking it out. But in the beginning, I want to know that if I can shut that down. Just to know that I can. If I shush, that means I disagree with what she's thinking about. And then I send her away. Does she drop it, or does she keep mentally engaged? Right? I disagree, that was not on a click on the collar. Good Gail. I want to see what she does. If she goes back, I tell her to out, which means I send her away, but also mentally, I tell her, don't worry about that situation. I got this. Come on, doggy, bark again. Really? Okay. Different dog now. This is good. See the level that she gave to the pack now? She's like, okay, what are we doing? Less of that. This isn't that bad. She's probably very workable right now. But if that bark happened and she was right back into wham, turned right over, looked at it, strong body language. No, that's a sign of a dog who's trying to be in the position of this pack of choosing how to deal with the situation, which is the leader. A leader punishes a pack member for doing that because they're trying to step on their toes, they're trying to come in and decide. Unless she was appointed to do that, she's not allowed to do that, and she'll believe that for now. She's like, okay, I'm not allowed to do that unless I've told her to worry about that thing, go get it, go check it out. It's not for you, okay? And it kind of goes with everything. Nothing is for her unless you give it to her. And then when you tell her to leave it alone, she leaves it alone. That goes with food, people, places to lay down, you know, couches, all this stuff. She doesn't just go and get it. This is how you get a dog under your thumb. She can't just go up and lay on the couch on her own, you know, or anything. All these privileges are either given to her, and she's allowed to do it, or she doesn't. And that's how she needs to believe. Like she's not allowed on that table right now. Say she wanted to be on that table right now. She's not allowed to be, even though she wants to be, because she wasn't offered. That's how we need to live with them, to develop them, you know, properly, so they're following us and all this respect and trust, so that we have control over them. So by the time they're 3, we can kind of loosen up and let them be adults, and they can kind of get into this beta role, if you will, where they're kind of like your partner. They know their role within your life, okay? But at first, we got to say no to everything with a dog like this, because they're doing everything wrong. If they're here, because we got to say no to everything. You're not allowed to do anything unless we tell you to. And then you got control, and then you ease up. That's how you do that. You can't start by giving her responsibilities. Like, okay, we need you to listen to the nth degree, but you can also alert bark and stuff like that, and be dominant. No. I don't want you being dominant towards me or towards the environment. I don't want you being interactive with it unless offered. And that cleans them up. And then we loosen up a little bit, and we start letting them have some responsibilities if we can handle it. As some people can't handle letting their dogs have responsibilities. If they let their dog do what I let Riggins do, then they can't control the dog to the point, you know, effectively, to the point where now it's out of control again. So it's like it doesn't actually learn what's good judgment, when to do it, when not to do it. And that means the dog sees something and reads the room, reads me, reads Julie, reads the thing, makes a decision that's appropriate based off the past. That's like the ultimate what you want out of a dog who's actually thinking and trying to please you. If you can't get that, then you can't let your dog you know, have that responsibility, because they're going to become a nuisance because you can't stop it. We have perfect amount of triggers today for her. It's just, we don't even have to leave the lawn. It's perfect. There's cars back and forth. There's a little girl riding a bike. There's some kids out, you know, wandering about. So every now and then you might just see they might just see somebody, and that gets the barking, you know, or she's not going to bark now. What she's going to do is she's going to alert with her body, and I'm going to disengage. I'm going to disagree with that when I see it strongly. So she'll see something and she'll react like this. She'll kind of be like this, and then she'll go. That's all no-nos. That's against the rules. Those are her going into, those are going to be barks, lunges, and all that stuff, or just running up on something. It's going to be movement towards something in the environment before she was offered to. That's all no. And if you start saying no to that, then you see a dog's state of mind change. A dog who doesn't allow themselves to go from this to this, because that gets punished. That's a no. We don't want that anymore. We don't need it. You're not a sports dog or anything. You just chill around the house. We don't need you to go 0 to 60. Don't do it anymore, unless you're offered. But you don't need to worry about offering her right now. You need to worry about telling her no, because that's what we struggle with. Offering is like, let's go crazy, and it's easy to do to get a dog amped up. But can you then go, and then they go back down to 0? Those are the things you really need to be successful, you know? So this is good. So I'm keeping her at a distance. I correct her. She tries to come closer to me. I send her away. You know, and it's multi-layered why I'm doing that. One, I want her to learn on her own over there. I don't need her to rely on me. She feels more secure when she's around us. I would like her to be able to see me and then see the trigger, not be up my ass when it happens. So she can have an educational experience where she sees how I'm behaving. When they're up your ass like this, they don't see you. They're at your ankles. They're looking at the thing. They're right there with you. They start alerting and acting a fool to the environment, which there's no need to. There's an innocent kid walking by. Why would we bark? If you were actually looking, you would see that's not a threat, but you don't know how to do this. So I'm going to tell you to knock it off by punishing you. No, punish you and send you away. You're not wanted near me right now because you're a nuisance, because that's what dogs do. Get away from me. I don't want you barking by me. What are you doing? You know, straighten up. She's starting to become aware of this now. She's like, oh, barking's not received well in this group. And then also being alert is not like triggering two things. It doesn't have to go straight to a bark. It can downgrade to just, that's a bark. You know, understand?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all no-nos.
Yep.
That's a dog who's trying to run the show, and that's a dominant thing, and she doesn't want to give it up. Well, when she's realized there's a more dominant dog in the room that's going to win the fight, she gives it up. That's how it works. She's a dog. That's how dogs work. Okay? That's how dogs who want to be dominant work. Not all dogs want to be dominant. There's airheads out there that don't even think about the hierarchy. But the ones that do, this is the struggle. It's not don't bark because I don't want you to. It's don't bark at that thing because it's mine. That person's mine. It's my choice. The choice is mine, how we deal with it when it comes up to the edge of my property. You bark, you ruin what, you took the choice away from me. That's what it is. Or you're going up on those people. Why are you going up on those people? That's mine, and I didn't tell you you could have it. She needs to learn how to respond to these triggers, the dog barking, people walking by, on her own, and I'm going to say yes or no. Either it was right or wrong. That's it. We need to teach you. And then when we're done with this exercise, then I'll release you and you can come over to the pack. But the reason we're doing this is because your attitude. If I said no, right, to that thing, and you didn't go back like this, we wouldn't be doing this. You keep doing this, we're going to keep doing this. And you see, she realizes that. So she's like, when I'm like this, nothing. But when I start to really focus on something in the environment, it's not good. Yeah, because that's not your job. You just chill. Let things happen around you. I'll decide whether a person can come up or whether they can't come up. And so that's what we're doing. You know, I'm letting her, in the way I'm telling her is I let her know whether or not she's even see that. Did you see it? Did you catch it on camera? Those are barks, those are lunges, those are movement forward without permission. It's just not happening because she knows that I don't want her to go there. But mentally, she's not giving it up, which means as soon as she goes home, she's going to say, I'm going to trample all over these fucking people. See, I'm not letting her come to me. I'm saying, wherever you are when you feel that stim, just take your mind down. There you go. And that's how she wants to cope. That mind's perfect. Now watch her go from this, see something or hear something and go. And that, what is that? That's no. That's a no-no. That's a bark. That's a lunge. That's movement forward. That's pulling on the leash. It's all right there for you to see it. Once she starts seeing triggers and she wants a trigger to it, but she doesn't, and instead she looks at me and I say, good girl, and that's our relationship now, then that's her saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And she says, how do you want me to deal with the situation? Now we can stop doing these exercises as much and do more just living with you and showing you. But until then, I need to be very specific that it's when you go. And they all learn it real quick. They all start, this is what they do. They go, oh shit, I'm not supposed to do that. And then they kind of check it out passively, and I say, good. But the only way I got the dog to check it out passively is by saying no to doing it assertively and quickly and with high energy. Boom, this that you see every dog do, and everyone gives them a pat on the head. It's okay, it's okay. That's your dog getting ready to go into drive. It's your dog building that energy up so that I can use it for my next behavioral choice. I'm saying, no. I don't want the energy to go up, because if you don't have that energy, your behavioral choices will be different. You're not going to sprint across the room if you're at a zero, and with your intention and with your energy, right? So that's why we want that, because that's reliable. That's her saying to us, I'm not going to react to the environment right now, and that's me saying to her, good. Now, if I say break and go wander about, then you can check out the environment. But there's also a layered rule on top of that they all learn. When it comes to pack members of people or dogs of a different pack, strangers, aka strangers, you don't have anything to do with them. You don't run up to them. You don't engage with them. You don't bark at them. You don't sit there and get really concerned about them. You ignore them because that's an opposite pack. And if you get unsure of what to do, you come to me. And you wait for the moment to pass, and you learn how to get through without trying to interact and be assertive towards something else in the environment that has nothing to do with you. Another person that you don't know, and another dog that you don't know, it'll never be okay for you to run up on them without me telling you that it's okay. Never be okay. It's always at the very least an inconvenience for everybody involved. At the very least. So it's a no-no for all rule. If all dogs respected that, then we wouldn't have dogs barking at other dogs, because that's them wanting to go over to that dog but can't get over to them because they're on a leash. So they're, you know, if the rule was we don't we don't interact with things out in the world unless we're told, that type of an expression of, I want to go over there, hey you, fuck off, ruff, 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 that would get punished. Because that's not, first of all, that's not good social behavior. People aren't allowed to do that. Walk down my block. I have dogs that walk down my block and they bark at me, and they bark at my child, and they bark at the dogs, and they're crazy, and the owner's got like earbuds in, they're not even paying attention, right? If that was a person that daily walked through my block and was like, we'd have some complaints, because it's disruptive. Even I just disrupted people just now, I'm sure. Why is it okay? Why is this guy walking his dog like this over, and the dog's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, to every dog it sees, and the guy just doesn't see any problem with it. Just lets it happen. Why? Why is this happening? Because it's the way they think about the dog, right? She's gonna think differently about her pack, which is me and Julie and the dogs that are here. And she's gonna think differently about how she interacts with the world while she's here. She's gonna learn the proper way to do it, the proper way to fit into a family, and the behavioral choices that we want and that we don't want. She's gonna learn all that, and then we're gonna send her home with those same rules and same accountability. And dogs change. They become the best versions of themselves. And they're not doing what this dog over here is doing, which is waking everybody up in the morning, because it's barking at literally something it does not have to bark at. Is it a squirrel? Maybe. Is it another dog walking by? Maybe. Not a threat to the house. Rah, 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 rah. But nobody's thinking right now, as this guy's going off, maybe I should step out there and tell the fucking thing to stop it. Like, really get it to stop. You know? Because it's getting the whole neighborhood to go off. Now, I don't mind it because it gets work here. But this is the quietest house in the neighborhood as far as dog barking. And we're a dog training company, and so we have different dogs in here all the time, but these are the same dogs, same neighborhood, barking at any moving thing, because that's the position they take in their pack, and it's not disagreed with by the humans, and so therefore it'll always be, How do we deal with it? We bring it inside. We let it bark a little bit, and then we go out and bring it inside, and we'll hear you again in a few hours after dinner, So it doesn't have to be that way. Now, if we take those owners that live there and we magically go, poof, they don't live there anymore, and now, poof, Josh lives with those dogs. Tomorrow, you won't hear any of this, or forevermore, because it's the people who are responsible for the dog's behavior who are actually at fault. And I'm not trying to point fingers and say, hey, I don't care. The dog's barking, it doesn't bother me. I'm not the type of person to complain about it or anything. I'm just saying, just about everybody doesn't have control of the dogs. And so everybody's accepted the fact that this is how dogs are. They're out of control. And so that's why this guy's doing this. Because he just thinks this is just how dogs are. Look at Marley and Me. That's how dogs are. And that's a very touching movie. But that's it. Like, that guy had no respect from that dog. At all. He's over here just like trying to negotiate with the fucking thing. Yeah, that's all the wrong ways to do it. And dogs are taking advantage of people, not knowing how to deal with them, not being willing to deal with them because it's going to make you look politically incorrect. Dogs aren't politically correct, and they're taking advantage of the fact that they live with a bunch of people that are. And so the dog stopped barking, and it's not because somebody told it not to. It's because they offered it something that they wanted to get them to go inside. That's why I'm guessing. I'm guessing he popped out the door and he was like, peanut butter, and he came in. They got like this routine where I can always get him in with peanut butter, unless there's someone at the door or something more valuable than peanut butter. That's the thing about using rewards, is like, then you have to play the game of like, well, do you want this or do you want this? Because if the thing in the environment's more valuable to the dog than the food that it's getting all the time, then it doesn't work. But what works? Punishing it properly. And that's why we use both. We say good, and we reward what we like, and we punish what we don't like, and then what we get is the dog that we want, right? To some degree, every dog's genetically kind of what it is, but you're happy. Anybody's happy with a dog who listens to you and has a good heart. Now, a dog with just a good heart that doesn't listen, they still end up here. That's her. That's Arlo. That's all of them. A lot of them, not all. Some of them they're just so animalistic, they don't even think that way. Trust me on that. They're just thinking about like sleeping, fucking, doing what they want, and if you're in the way, you're a problem. They are out there. But she's got that connection to humans, right? But she's also got prey drive, and she wants to be dominant towards other dogs, and she wants to be she doesn't even want me to touch her in certain places. These are all red flags. Can't do your dog's nails and stuff like that. It's gonna be a red flag. You know? Hey, ready? Break.
Yay! Good girl, baby.
Good
Hi.
job.
Hi, baby girl. Who's a good girl?
She did good. What I think about our training is that it's consistent with the state of mind stuff. So you see a dog they're all different breeds, they're all different shapes and sizes, different issues. But at the end of the day, when we're all in the training room, we have all those dogs there. I do, and they're all the same. They all go to the same space, and they all are able. Every dog I've ever met is able to go to this space, which is where they're most reliable. They listen and they don't make bad choices, which is what Cesar Millan used to call calm submission. People call it different things, but whatever you call it, you just have to be able to identify it and get it from your dog. And that's really what's going on underneath the training. The state of mind stuff. It's putting them in their place in a pack of humans and dogs, and how they should behave. Where is their role? Where they stand in the pack will determine what behavioral choices they make, right? So if they feel like they're the leader in the situation, then they bark, lunge, blah, blah, blah. If they feel like they're the follower and that the leader will disagree with them trying to lead, then they watch and take direction. It's a real thing because it's them. No, maybe that's not how exactly we'll live with our family, but that's how dogs live with dogs. And so if we don't know how to do that and talk to them that way, to put them in their place mentally on the hierarchy, by the messages we send to them every day, what we allow them to do and how we interact with them, our relationship. And it looks in like, what do I do? What happens when I catch the dog doing something I know it's not supposed to? What happens within the next 30 seconds? Or what happens when I tell the dog to go lay down, and then the dog goes in the opposite direction and runs away? What happens in the next 30 seconds? What happens when the dog jumps on my guest? What happens in the next 30 seconds? What happens when the dog pulls? What happens? What happens? That's what shapes your relationship. How do you respond in these situations will reflect on how the dog would treat you. Now I'll tell you, I told you that story earlier about the guy who's doing this. He's never gonna have control over that dog because he's walking like this, which in the dog's eyes is he's just dead weight. He's being dragged around by this dog. The dog sees him as an inconvenience because he's weight on the end of the leash and I can't go do what I want. Rather than I respect my human, he's like a father figure to me. I would never disrespect him. I love him. I do what he says. He takes care of me. This kind of relationship, that doesn't exist with that guy because he walks like this and lets the dog piss all over the fucking place and bark and right? Put that thing in its place. Get yourself feeling good. Walk around with some confidence. He starts to bark, knock it off, keep walking. Next day you go to walk by the same thing that got him to bark. He goes to bark, he stops himself. Good boy. Now we got a pattern started and we'll work on this next week. Then we'll find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And next thing you know, it just generalizes. It's just stuff. It's just the dog already knows no matter what situation we're in, the dynamic between me and this particular human is what he says goes. And that's when you see a dog who's trying to please you, and that's when you can loosen up and show your appreciation for them being that way. But as soon as the dog enters a space that has more attitude in it, they want to be independent, they don't want to listen, well then I'm going to enter my space that I know how to enter to take control of the situation. And that's why the dogs look good in our videos, and they're having fun, and they're having a good time, but everybody knows, all those dogs know that the humans, if they say stop, you stop. If they say do, you do. And they know that because they've been told to stop and they didn't. They've been told to do and they didn't. And they see what happens in the next 30 seconds. And that forms the relationship as the days go on. 2 weeks later, the dogs aren't even bumping into these consequences anymore because they learned how to live with us. They adapted to us. We didn't adapt to them. That's not what we're paid to do. Us adapting to them would be us being paid to solve the problems and then finding excuses as to why we couldn't solve the problems. Every problem can be, okay, I don't want to be blanket statement, but that's why you got to say like 99, right? Because you don't want to do blanket statement. But with this approach, the behavioral issues that I think are symptoms of a dog who's trying to take that position go away. We're talking biting, we're talking barking, we're talking assertiveness, pulling, rudeness. That goes away based off of the dynamic of the relationship, which is me putting myself in all sorts of situations with her and showing her disagreeing with the way she deals with the situation, or agreeing with the way she deals with the situation, and molding her. But what that does, it doesn't only teach her, it builds a bond between me and her, to the point where she sees me, and her association to me is, I'm going to carry this certain energy that he likes. I know Josh likes it when I carry this energy, so I'm going to do that. And I'm also just going to listen to him, and he's going to take care of me. And I will, and I go out of my way to take care of the dog. You know, so, and what I mean by that is making sure they get their hikes, and they get their free time, and they get to be dogs, and they get to, and they, you know what, they think it's a fair trade. So when we go home with her, she's going to want to trigger back. That's fine. That's your chance then. It's your chance for the dog to do the wrong thing, and then you show them what now happens in the next 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's do this.